Hello, and welcome to the 27th episode of Framed and Bound, a podcast where literary people discuss movies about books and writers. This week, my guest is Paula Bomer, and we'll be talking about the 2006 ensemble drama Even Money, which you can find online wherever films are available to rent or stream. Even Money was directed by Mark Rydell and written by Robert Altman. It stars Kim Basinger, Nick Cannon, Danny DeVito, Kelsey Grammer, Carla Gugino, Ray Liotta, Jay Moore, Tim Roth, and Forest Whittaker. And this is a summary of the film from Wikipedia. The story concerns three strangers who are addicted to gambling and how their lives come to be intertwined. They are a novelist who struggles to write her follow-up book, a former stage magician, and an older brother of a college basketball star. And here we go with our discussion of Even Money.
So you watched Even Money?
I did. I have to say, I was reading up on it after, sort of before and after, and for a movie that has, I think, a fairly good pedigree as far as Mark Rydell, is a pretty has directed some pretty notable movies. The cast is fantastic. I will say I was not at all familiar with this really before you mentioned it. So how did you find it? Were you aware of it from sort of the outset when it was first released, or did you something you found later on?
I think I found it later on. I definitely watched it on my own television, so I did not see it in a theater, but I generally hate movies about writers. I think I told you that.
Yeah.
And so, but I liked this one, even though I will make my complaints about the depiction of the writer who is played by, but yes, excellent cast.
Yeah.
I actually like this movie. It got terrible reviews, which is why no one knows about it.
Yeah.
Even though Tim Roth, Forest Whittaker is so great in it, and that whole it's like an ensemble movie, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, so there was an interview I found with Mark Rydell, I think shortly after this was finished, where he made an interesting comparison, and I don't necessarily think I agree with this comparison, but it also reminded me. So Mark Rydell had said this was kind of his homage to Robert Altman.
Oh.
And I had forgotten, because I think of Mark Rydell as mostly a director, but I believe he got his start as an actor, and he has a very memorable role as a gangster in Altman's adaptation of The Long Goodbye.
Oh, that movie I have lots of opinions about, but that's not about a writer. We have to talk about that another time.
Although actually, I mean, technically it's kind of in the purview, because there's the Sterling Hayden character, I believe, is a writer.
Oh, the guy who lives in the building? Is that right?
The guy who the sort of depressed alcoholic writer who has a bottle of aquavit in a block of ice.
Yes, okay. Is he the husband of yeah. Oh, yes, I forgot.
But I believe Mark Rydell is the gangster who the very young Arnold Schwarzenegger is working for, who you see him I think slashes someone's face at one point, and it's one of those things.
That's the scene. Yeah, I actually researched that scene. I printed out the screenplay.
Oh, nice.
I looked at the book because I'm obsessed with that scene regarding coercive control, which is a new word we use for to define a certain aspect of abusing women.
Yeah.
Interestingly, that scene is not in the screenplay.
Oh shit.
Nor is it in the book.
Oh wow.
Yes. But okay, so the long. I can see that though. How I mean, with Altman, I could see. It reminds me a little bit of The Producers. Is that what the one? What is the one where he's making fun of Hollywood? That
oh my God,
the player.
The player.
Sorry, I knew it was a P. In terms of the way that the plot develops. So I can see how that's an ode to Altman. Fascinating.
Yeah. I will say, I also, for all that, when I go on Wikipedia, it's the reviews are generally negative, and I'm I kind of see that, because I definitely also had my issues with it, but I also agree that there are some really good performances. There is one thing that I want to get into later in the episode that I think was a really interesting thematic element of the film that it touched on that it didn't really develop, but I think it made some interesting things. And there was one bit of casting that I really liked, which is like I the sorely missed Ray Liotta, who I feel like usually is playing some form of damaged or horrible person, and
Yes.
casting him as like the upstanding, academic who like one of his students is just like, hey, you wanna fuck me for a good grade, and he's just like, no, you got to do the work, and it's like
Is it his only good guy role ever? He's
I
such a good guy.
I think there's been other, but like most of the things that I see him in, yeah, are like, you know, even like we're like Goodfellas, where like he's a gangster who spends half the movie coked out of his mind, is like probably one of his more likable characters in the grand scheme of things, which,
Right.
yeah.
But his face um has always, he's got those big eyes that look like
Hmm.
he's wearing eyeliner.
Yeah.
We wonder if he's had like surgery. Like I was like, are those like fake eyeliner eyes? I don't know. That's kind
Yeah.
of how I feel about Ray Liotta, who rest in peace.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, very weird casting, but great casting, I think, for him. Like
Yeah.
he does a great job with it.
Yeah.
As long as you can get your mind, I can wrap my head around him being a nice guy. There's some people who play the same thing over and over again, and you'll never be able to. I can't see them as
Yeah.
anything but how they are normally cast. But I actually, with his big sweet eyes, it worked.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like both he and Kim Basinger in their plot line, and Forest Whitaker and Nick Cannon in their plot line, I think did a good job of creating, like, there's a lot of stuff sort of that is not spelled out, like with the Forest Whitaker and Nick Cannon, where like they're brothers. Like the fact that they're casting two actors who are almost 20 years apart in age, like you kind of get the impression that it's like, okay, this is like the older brother, and he basically raised his younger brother, because like you don't ever see, parents, so it's like parents are assumably gone,
Right.
you know and like and he's been responsible, and like, but there's also the weird, like, and I think in a lot of ways that was probably the most successful of the sort of three or four plot lines for me, because
I agree.
like also I understand like the younger brother is a promising college player. If he plays well, he will be drafted by an NBA team and will get a lucrative contract, and that will be good for like him because of his career, and like that will be good for his brother because he'll bring his brother along with him, and he will share in his, and like the Leota and Basinger, it's well, it's not, I don't want to say funny, but it's interesting that like for a American film where it's like you have cast two people who are both basically at the same age. I think they were both born within a year of one another, so it's like they're both, I think, in their early 50s when this is made. There's sort of a hint that the two of them have just been in a relationship since, for decades at this point. They have a teenage daughter, um and like all of that is good, but getting to maybe the her as a writer,
Yes.
you don't ever like, that like she's blocked, and like there's all of
Yes.
the information we get about her writing career and like her family that like does not, we don't get that until like much later, and like halfway through the movie she's like, oh, by the way, I have gambled away all of my family's money,
Yes,
which,
I actually stopped to see when that happened, and it was exactly at halfway.
yeah,
So, because I'm always interested in how people time narratives
yeah,
and when things are. So, there's two ways of, we're talking about a movie about a writer, but I'm also curious about this writer who is kind of non existent. I looked at the two other projects film wise, and he doesn't have any other writer credits. And now
yeah.
I'm forget. I'm looking at my notes and I can't find his name.
I
Is it
I
something
know that,
Tannen?
I think, yeah,
Robert Tannen.
which I kept thinking at first. I was like, wait, is that like Biff Tannen in the Back to the Future movies? Then it's like, no, this is a real guy. This is not Tom Wilson playing, a bully.
And he has one other credit, which is like an action film of some
Yeah,
variety. And
with Nicolas
my notes
Cage,
are
which also actually has a surprisingly good cast. But yeah,
yeah. And
and
then did you see the other one was Spike Lee?
No. Oh, right. He was
and
right. He
a
was involved in one of those New
documentary.
Orleans documentaries, right?
He was a writer for that, and that's
Okay.
his credit, which is kind of fascinating. So, um, but but back to Kim and Ray Liotta, since Kim is the writer. I
Yeah.
love that they couldn't let her be a blonde because, she's a writer and blondes are stupid. So how could they write?
Yeah.
Secondly, so they dye her hair red. And then why the glasses and the the jacket,
Yeah.
what is it called? Help me. Having it,
Oh,
just the just they um there's a name for that jacket. You and I are both wearing our t-shirts because we actually are writers. Yeah, but she's wearing like a suit jacket.
yeah.
There's yeah. So a blazer. Oh my
Blazer,
goodness.
yes.
There's
Yeah.
the word. So she's in a blazer, she's wearing her glasses. And she has had to dye her hair red to make her less whatever. Oh, and then there's even comments about how she doesn't have breasts. Like they had to put that in there. And I'm like, well, okay, they're just trying to make Kim not be Kim because that part was the least successful. But
Yeah.
her actual, so the fact that the whole movie is really about gambling addiction
Mhm.
too, even though it centers around a writer.
Yeah.
Um, and the many layers. So this is what I liked about it, which to me saved it. Well, the cast, first of
Yeah.
all. And now that you explain that this is sort of an ode to Altman, and I can
Yeah.
kind of see that. That's very interesting. I didn't find that when I looked around, but I just feel like, taking chances, um, wishing for more, um, and lying.
Yeah.
So all of the characters are lying to themselves and lying to people who are very close to them.
Yeah.
All of them get caught in their lies and then defend themselves pretty much, or at least there's
Yeah.
two big scenes where that happens. One, the husband confronts her, Kim, saying, you weren't writing, you were, I saw you leave the casino, and she just attacks him.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then another one when Forest Whittaker defends himself for working for this bookie. And it's really, yeah, so that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think those are really intelligent scenes, and they were obviously, I think both of those actors handled it as well. I
Yeah.
mean, Kim handles it as best as she can, considering that she's, with her dyed hair and her blazer. It's a little silly. But I actually I like the script.
I
So
I
yeah.
mostly did. There was another one of the interviews I saw with the director where he talked about how this was, I think, like the writer was still pretty young when he did this, and he said something like, we went through it scene by scene.
Hmm.
And okay, so there were a couple of moments where we were talking a little bit about some of the information is revealed. And I think there were a few points where the structure worked against it. And I want to get to the Kelsey Grammer character in a little bit, because for me, I think that was maybe the weakest element of the film.
Yes,
Um,
I want to hear your opinion on that. So I just double checked. It is exactly 20 years old, this
okay.
movie. And that, it's going to feel, there's very few movies that cannot feel
Oh
dated
yeah.
in their certain aspects, but
Yeah.
thematically, um, self-deception and
Oh yeah.
addiction are kind of forever themes.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
then
yeah.
writers having writer's block and being liars and hurting people,
Yeah.
you know,
There, there was
and
a
having addictions.
it's also a little bit depressing that if you made this movie today, it's like you would not need bookies or casinos for any of these characters to indulge in their sort of in their worst, you know,
Oh
characteristics.
my God, they just need their phone.
Yeah. Um, and I think it's also notable that like the two characters who are the most, I mean, it goes, it kind of it makes sense, but like it goes without saying the two characters who are the most opposed to it are like the Carla Gugino character who works in a hospital. I believe she's a nurse because she says the doctor will see you. And so it's like someone who is dealing with like matters of life and death. And then the basketball coach, who again seems to be the sort of guy who's like, takes like being a role model and like a leader of these young men and sort of keeping a bunch of college age. Speaking as someone who was once a college age young man, like you do a lot of dumb shit, and he is clearly someone who takes very seriously, like, I am going to keep my players on the straight and narrow, like they're not gonna,
He figured it out.
yeah,
He figured it out and he did something and he it
yeah,
was very aggressive. I loved that. I loved Yeah, that was the
yeah,
best. I think that strangely, and then I see that, this writer has worked with Spike Lee. I don't know if what, but I feel like he handled, the African American
yeah,
characters and that the whole sports um thing with just that's the best in many
yeah,
ways, the best
yeah,
plot part, as we agree. Also, maybe it has to do with
yeah.
Forest
So I
Whitaker
mean,
being amazing.
yeah. He played, he's doing like three or four or five different things every time you see him on
Mm.
screen, which is and I think, I have not seen Nick Cannon in as much, like I think I know Nick Cannon more as a celebrity than as an actor, but I also think
I
like
don't actually know who he is. I'm sorry, I didn't Google him.
he is, I think actor and I believe musician and like
Okay,
just
the
like
name was familiar. Yeah,
yeah. But I feel like I know him more as like someone who is more famous for being famous than like, oh, did you see his great performance in X and Y and Z?
he was
And
great in this
yeah,
too.
yeah, like the two of them, again, the two of them had a very believable like dynamic where like there's they've relied on each other, but it's not always healthy, and yeah. So, but again, like that whole plot line was understandable for me basically from the word go. Whereas with the Kim Basinger character, well, actually, two things. You brought up earlier the sort of fight between her character and her husband, played by Ray Liotta,
Yes,
and there's a
I hope
scene where,
that's okay if I'm
oh yeah,
giving some, what are they called?
oh yeah, no spoiler. I
Spoilers.
mean,
We could do
this is
spoilers.
we're in a
Okay,
spoiler laden
great.
zone here.
Fantastic.
But there's the whole scene where she's at one point she's like, well, you don't write, you just teach, and I'm like, is that real? Is it realistic that a guy who is like a literary criticism professor, presumably a tenured professor, if he can afford to basically support the entire family, while she's working on a book, you know, I assume he would have done at least some critical writing, like beyond, maybe he is not a creative writer, but like I would assume in that place you still have to have at least something there. And I think it also hurts the film. Like there's a moment very late in the film where she's like, "Oh, I can ask my agent for some money." And first off, I'm like, I do not have an agent, but I'm like, I can't imagine any situation in which like, you know, a writer would just be like, "Hey, agent, could I borrow like $20,000?" Uh, you know,
Advances on your next book. I mean, that is something of the past.
yeah,
And that also assumed that her previous book did well,
yeah,
which clearly it didn't because she mentions that.
yeah,
No, and then, well, that goes with the blazer and the glasses. The This is why I don't like movies about writers because um I think there's a movie where Johnny Depp plays a writer and they have him glasses and a blazer
oh
too.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
they don't anyway. Um, but and then the finances of it,
yeah,
yeah. Things have changed in 20 years. Things are
yeah,
worse. Things are definitely worse for academics. That scene I found moving just because she was defending her addiction
yeah,
and therefore she was just being cruel. Clearly he must have written some academic papers. Nobody gets a job
yeah,
at a university, but also they a lot of academic, there was something, speaking of phones, I forget who was said that I have seen academia ruin many writers.
yeah,
So he's probably a wannabe writer,
yeah,
who instead had to get a job to support his family or
yeah,
something. uh
yeah,
and I don't know, that scene worked for me. But no, it does seem very unrealistic. Lots of unrealistic.
yeah.
Yeah, it
It's like
was not. Yeah.
to think about it. I mean, like on the podcast we talked about Wonder Boys many episodes ago, And I feel like that episode does a pretty good, that is from, that was a few years before this, but like that was a film that also, introduces you to a writer with, well, kind of the opposite of writer's block, but you also understand pretty early on like where that writer's career is, and kind of like, okay, he's written some acclaimed books, but he's under, he's kind of under pressure to write the next thing, and people are asking him when the next thing is. And again, with this, until she has the conversation with the other writer in the coffee shop, who's just like, "Oh, I know who you are. I loved your book. I really want to know about the next one." Like, it's like you know, other than her precocious teenage daughter, like we don't know anybody else who has read her previous book. And again, that's fine if it's like, you know, it didn't sell, but I really wish like there had been a little bit more of a sense of like, is she, you know, what is she doing this? Is she writing for her own, pursuit of the art? Is she writing for commercial success? Is because like all of those things, like any of those things would have made sense as a motivation. And the fact that she has just been sort of sucked into this addiction also worked. But like the fact that we don't know the answer to any, if it's any of those things, was a little bit frustrating to me. On the counterpoint to that, though, and I'm making my own point counterpoint here. One of the things I did appreciate was the look of the film. I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, and I've not, but I feel like all of the scenes in the casino are lit in a very, like, they're shot a little bit differently, but they're also shot in a very, like, in a very appealing way. Like the colors pop out a little bit. Like it is weirdly like the nicest I think I've ever seen a casino look, as someone who's spent some time in casinos, which I, kind of hate. They're, bright
They're so
lights and
depressing.
yeah. And this, like, the loving shots of the cards and the chips and like the depth of color, like I feel
Mhm.
like that is a very effective choice. I don't know if it was Mark Rydell. I don't know if it was the director of photography, but like I
Mhm.
feel like someone made a choice to be like, we're going to make this casino look very inviting, and it sort of brings you into, oh, this is why Kim Basinger is spending, like, beyond the addiction. It's like this is why she's spending so much time there, because like this feels really, there's something kind of magical about this place, even though it's not.
Right. Well, so there, there's some discussion about behavioral addictions
Mm,
and substance addictions. And I think we use abuse disorder, but we're going to just be a little old fashioned and use addiction because the movie's old. And and when a person walks into a shitty bar for their drink, they think it's the coolest, greatest bar. So you're
yeah,
kind of seeing it through the addict's eyes. That's
yeah,
how I look at it. And in their mind, they're like, this is the best place ever. This is where I want to be. This is where my future is going to change.
yeah,
This is where all my problems are going to go away. This is where I'm going to win my dreams. And so in that way, that for whatever, so if that was what, the whoever, the cinematographer and the director working together, let's say, they did a great job of that. They did a great job of kind of seeing the place, seeing the casino through the eyes of a gambler.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and so let's can we talk a little bit about Danny DeVito, and did you like
yeah.
his role?
I did. I
Because,
I was also happy that this was kind of a mini LA Confidential reunion.
oh my goodness.
So,
Yes.
but
That's
yeah,
such a I forget, of course.
but also, yeah.
So,
I mean, Danny DeVito playing a down on his luck magician is just like, it's like, yeah, yeah. That's, yep. I'm on board. You had me at Danny DeVito. Yeah,
and and as far as like the layers of all of the everyone is trying to follow their dreams, and their dreams are a bit unrealistic,
yeah,
like, and then the writer being the one who, in some ways maybe the least unrealistic, but actually, like, how easy it is to write a good book
yeah,
or a book that someone is going to care about,
yeah,
and come up with a good idea when you're blocked. um, but So with Danny DeVito, like, magic, magic is a lie, right? So again, with the whole like lot, but it brings people joy to see like a fake thing. They're like, oh
Yeah,
my God, a bird actually came out of your sleeve, or like, these things. And it makes people happy to believe in magic.
yeah,
And gambling, the idea, there are people who can count cards and whatnot, but we're not talking about that. We're
yeah,
talking about people and what is that feedback of, you know wanting some believing that something really great is going to happen, even though you do the same thing over and over again, and it never works out. And then let's talk about the predators though too.
mhm,
But I feel like having a magician just was like kind of like nailing that home. Like,
yeah,
he's a magician with a gambling problem. Like, he's got like the two
yeah,
layers of self-deception and deceiving other people.
yeah,
Um, and writers are deceiving people too, kind of like fiction is itself a certain, like, you create a fake world. And there, I felt like there was just a lot of great layers of the metaphor of writing. It's a gamble.
yeah,
It's a lie. Um, and then I actually read something recently about, it was an essay called Mean Criticism, and it was longer than that, but it was about, something that England is better at, which is mean criticism. But the whole point was that, of that is that, she's very cruel to her husband, and then she ends up exploiting this magician.
yeah,
And there is a cruelty to writing. Many people have said things, in very lovely ways about this truth. Um, and Yeah, she uses this guy.
yeah,
I don't even think intentionally, and that's the thing. Like, she didn't go in
yeah,
to do that. And also how it comes to her, like, it's almost like because she felt cornered by the guy in the cafe, and all of a sudden this whole thing about, like, I'm writing a book about a magician. And
yeah,
I feel like because she needed to answer, it's like she needed to be pushed into a corner so tightly. That's another like thing with addiction. And like where she talked her way out, kind of, or she dug herself deeper. Either way, you can look at the way she dealt with her husband and his confrontation. And there was the same thing where she's cornered by this person who's like, what are you working on? And then that time it worked.
yeah.
So that gamble, like whatever you want to call that, a gamble or whatever, worked the second time. I don't know.
But it's also though it's I mean yeah I that was something I took note like I sat with the film a little bit and then that kind of clicked into place for me because it is I think it is very very dark and again we're getting into very spoilers for the end of the movie here but the Danny DeVito character I mean he dies at the end of the film
He
he murders someone and then is kind of given a free pass and he's still so guilt ridden he goes home and hangs himself
he's
and
he
what
gave up. I don't know if it was guilt. I think it was just zero hope. But that's interesting that you thought he was guilt ridden.
I mean, I feel like, even if I mean like the Tim Roth character is a pretty loathsome guy, but I think even like I think killing, someone who has himself ordered other people killed, like I'm, even if you like if I had gone and shot someone, even if they were someone who had done a bunch of really bad things, I think I still might have been pretty shaken up by it and been like, I still crossed the line there. But it was I guess it's interesting
You're
from
different than me. Then this is so here's their different. Like, I actually, what I liked about Tim Roth's character, he was a regular at my bar. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
oh
When I
amazing.
one of my bars, not Milady's, so I worked at a couple of bars in the 90s, but I worked at this bar called Orson's, named after Orson Welles, on Second Avenue between, I don't know, it was 11th and 12th, or yeah, something like that. And I had some really great regulars, and he was one of them. That said, what I liked about his character is that he enjoyed hurting people.
Yeah.
And I do believe that these people do exist. I believe that there are some people whose only joy in life is hurting other people. And I don't the first time, so I've watched this, I watched this a while ago, and then I watched it again because we were talking about it. And I know that the first time I saw that movie, I thought he was kind of one-dimensional or something like that, or maybe and not that believable. But I now that I'm like approaching 60 and been through so much in my life, I'm like, yes, there are actually people like him.
Yeah.
There are people whose only joy is trying to, fuck people over.
Yeah.
And
It-
that's
yeah.
how they live.
I mean, really, it seems like the only being that he cares for is his bird. I mean, and it contrasts
Mm.
to the two bookies. Well, I mean, he's upset when the bird is like released from its cage and flies off, but
Okay.
but like as compared to the Jay Moore and the boxer, who are both like a little bit more ethically. I mean, the fact that Jay Moore is constantly drinking Pepto-Bismol, assumably with the implication that he's developing an ulcer because he doesn't really want to be, beating
Oh,
people.
absolutely. Those are two Catholic boys who are also like, who are fooling around with the,
Yeah,
thinking like culturally not understanding how bad what they're doing is, or but
yeah,
but
yeah.
they do, and they don't. Yeah.
And actually, I will say one of the things in the script that surprised me is I feel like we were kind of waiting for the young boxer to that he was going to be the one to get revenge on the Tim Roth character. Like when like I was like, oh, he's gonna like leave the game and then this guy's gonna beat him to death because he seems to be pretty good with his fists. And like, no, he is actually gonna make the decision to be like, no, I'm gonna walk away and go like make out with my hot girlfriend and like and go live a relatively peaceful life, which honestly like seems like a very smart decision, but also this is kind of a film noir, and film noirs often involve characters making just like the worst possible decisions. So it's like, oh, you made you were actually really you did the smart moral thing, and like you get to be happy with someone who loves you and you love. Like, great job, buddy. Like you made it out.
Yeah, the ending wasn't really too cliche. I mean,
Yeah,
I watched it, I guess, 3 times. So I mean, I'm a little like by the third time expecting it, but no, it had some interesting twists in that, in a in a noir way. It
yeah,
wasn't, wildly unique, but it worked for me for sure.
yeah,
That one guy decides to actually move on, and
yeah,
then again, that mirrors addiction. Some people get free, and other people don't.
yeah.
I don't know.
So actually, the one thing though that I wanted to just uh before I forget is like the thing that I found the thing that I found interesting about the Kim Basinger character, that her kind of coming through it is like she decides to write about the DeVito character and assumably like a fictionalized version of his life. But I mean, the cover art for her book is literally like the same painting that we've seen on the wall of his trailer. And so, and there's something I think a little, I don't know how the writer or the director felt about that moment in the ending, but I think it's, it's supposed to be overall, it's, I think, a happy one for her in that, she has written a book. Presumably, if she's doing a signing for it, it has been successful. It has maybe led to a rekindling of her relationship with her
Yes,
assumably ex-husband at that point. All of those
right.
things are good, but there's also, I think, something a little bit unsettling about the fact that it's like she had to do so kind of by stealing someone else's life. And I think some of it is also just
Yes,
like, this is also kind of what writers, I mean, also, this is kind of what writers do. Like, you sometimes that's there. And I think that in the context of a film about gambling, where like there's sort of a different, I mean, there's a different kind of stealing of lives there, but there is also the whole, is the younger brother gonna is he gonna fix the basketball game? And like that's also kind of a sort of stealing of his life and like stealing away
absolutely.
of his career. And so like it's an interesting thing to kind of be in there, and it's not it was not like hammered home, but I'm like it's a really interesting note to end it on. And I think it's one of the few reasons that actually, yeah, I think this is a better film than it gets credit for, because it's, yeah,
Yeah, well, writers stealing other people's lives. Um, there's actually a really big, I follow this a little bit because of particularly because of the class issue of it. So
mm,
this is a little it's on topic but off topic, but you know that the very wealthy woman who wrote a memoir after doing some like drugs to help her with her problem, like I think it was MDMA, and has
Yeah.
recovered a memory of being abused by a teacher.
Yeah.
And then a student from that school said she stole my story and she got the teacher wrong. And I actually believe the person who is now suing her. So that is a very blatant life stealing
Yeah.
thing. But I've been writing um for more than half my life. Wow. But
Yeah.
that's just showing my age. And you use people around you, and you will. I know that I've lost some friends. I actually, when I started writing, my parents knew I was studying writing, I was writing, but I didn't want them to read my work. And I have a son who's a writer, and he wanted me to read something of his. And I read like a paragraph, and I said, just no, I don't want to read your work. You that's not me reading. I'm not your reader.
Yeah.
And I have a collection of 3 stories coming out, not anytime soon. It's that, the thing three, they're just 3 short stories.
Mhm.
It's this little imprint. And I've decided to, in the dedication, mention a friend of mine from college who I've written about him twice. And the one that's going to be out in this small collection, it bothered him. He's like, that was really rough
Yeah.
for me to read that. Just, I don't like to think about that, because we're very close friends. I'm the godmother of his child. And then the second one had to do with the trip he went to Mexico. And that was printed in the journal. That's not coming out in this new collection. But no, I completely steal from people. I honestly, I and I it's a ruthlessness, and so there's a selfishness and a ruthlessness and a lying to yourself, all of those themes. So I feel like, you know, that's why I love, one of the reasons I love this movie.
Yeah.
But the second thing that I wrote, he was like, oh, this is fine because you fictionalized it so much that I'm completely okay with it.
Yeah.
And that was about, he rode a motorcycle from Boston. We went to BU together. He rode a motorcycle with 2 other guys from Boston to Belize and
Oh,
back
wow.
again.
Oh my
I
God.
know, right? And I was so into that story that I fully stole it from him.
Yeah.
But so yeah, all of that whole where she decides to just like use this guy's, we don't know what the entire novel's about, but
Yeah.
the thievery, yeah,
Yeah.
with the cover and everything.
Yeah.
It's also an ode to him. I think that sometimes when we steal from somebody, that even though they wouldn't perhaps like it,
Yeah.
I don't know, but in a way, it's a sort of love. It's a twisted kind of love. And then again, to me, that mirrors gambling.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
you love it, and yet it's a destructive thing in a way.
This is a highly right. So you worked at Milady's in that was on
Yeah.
McDougal, right?
No, it was Prince and Sullivan. And then,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
yes.
that was that was so I went to NYU and I was on the program board there, so I did a lot
Oh,
of
that's
conference.
close to
And
Milady's.
that was occasionally this is also I was straight edge for most of college, so like I was occasionally in Milady's before I was 21, but I was also not drinking anything while I was there, so
Yeah.
but that definitely brings back some memories of yeah, sitting at a bar at the age of 19 and not drinking beer. Uh
Well, good for you for not drinking because it's bad for your health. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, I just feel like the layers, like that's what I'm so curious about this writer, and then saw that he didn't. There's not much about him. I can't even
Yeah.
tried to find a photo of him
Yeah.
because there were problems with. I didn't like the voiceover. I didn't even really like the depiction of her as a writer, but I liked the honesty of her. I liked that she was kind of a bad person, and that part of her bad person was that she stole people's she
Yeah.
stole this man's life, that and that she was a liar. I
Yeah.
don't know. It really, and that she was lying to cover up an addiction,
Yeah.
which Yeah.
I
So,
I really enjoyed the fact that and it's something that at first I was like, is this an intentional thing? And then I was like, oh no, this is an intentional thing. The fact that she always just says, I'm at the coffee shop, and then there's finally like a point where her husband's like, which one? And then like there are points where she's actually mentioning specific coffee shops, and it's like, but I think it's hilarious that like that she's just like being super like I'm weirdly reminded of a film that this is not that similar to, but it's like Burn After Reading, whenever I think like George Clooney is just like, oh, I have to get a run in. It's like that sort of same like this very almost meaningless phrase of like this sort of defense mechanism of just like, oh yeah, I'm at the coffee shop, like, and like is someone gonna ask her? Then it's like, oh yeah, someone did ask her, like which there are many coffee shops in this, in this city where uh I will
yeah, that
also,
was funny. No, there were some great details
yeah,
there. For I complain about her basically the way they made her look is that
yeah,
my most annoying thing about like her as a writer. But I mean, whatever. I don't know how to make a movie, so but as a writer, it just cracks me up. But I liked what they were. I liked the way that the characters embodied a general theme
mhm,
and the variations on that theme. It felt like each thing was each plot. So
yeah,
thing, sorry, each plot. There are these multiple plots. They all were dealing with the exact same subject matter, but in different ways. And so I don't know. I
yeah,
as storytelling goes, I think they did a good job. There was a lot of,
yeah.
back and forth between all these different storylines.
I agree, although I think maybe this is the point to address you brought up the voiceover earlier, and
Yeah.
the okay. So the voiceover is by Kelsey Grammer's character, and Kelsey Grammer is playing a character with like he is assumably a veteran who was injured in combat because he's walking on crutches every time we see him. I think he is wearing a prosthetic nose. Uh,
Uh,
he has a very
okay.
distinctive mustache. He is a we find out at the end of the film he is a corrupt cop who is
Mhm.
working with the mysterious Ivan, who like I there was one point in my notes where I wrote down, is Ivan the cockatoo? Because like there's the whole thing where like, who is Ivan? And then it was like, oh
Who's
wait,
Ivan?
Ivan is played by Mark Rydell. Like, okay, that's actually kind of a clever, like, that's a nice little like metafictional nod. But also I'm like,
Yes, it was, right?
but also I'm just like, I don't really care about who Ivan, like, unless there's going to be some kind of shock that like, I don't know, like Ray Liotta is secretly Ivan. But the whole like is, but I'm like, no, I know that Ivan is a real person because Danny DeVito like has like decades long history with him. So like, but I'm like, where is Ivan? And it's like, oh, Ivan is on like a tropical island drinking brandy with a beautiful woman. And
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer, who's just like hanging out there drinking brandy with him too, because why not? Um,
Yeah, no, but that's where, so sometimes I feel like noir movies are purposefully being a little cheesy.
yeah,
Does that maybe I'm
yeah,
giving them too much credit, but I don't mind a little bit of cheesiness. Um, and I guess, especially if I feel like it's purposeful. But in general, I did not like the voiceover.
yeah,
But that again was it's cheesy. Like if I look at it like, okay, they're actually trying to make me a little annoyed. Because
yeah,
isn't that what cheesy is? Like when things are cliche or silly, you're just like, oh God, really? So they're kind of want us to say that. So it's like, okay, they got their intended effect, but
yeah,
I feel like that when they got away from that, when the film got away from that, and the story was about these people suffering for their what the voiceover says in the beginning too is like, um, and this was supposed to be about addiction, is that sometimes when you look for more, you end up with less.
yeah,
Little cliches like that, and as cliche, um, you know and and yeah,
yeah.
so that was slightly problematic, and then yet demonstrated well through the rest of the script's writing and the unique storylines of the characters.
there were definitely a few points where I felt like sort of any of the three core plot lines could have probably been a film on their own. And I feel like because like we're introduced, the first scene is like under a pier, the police find a body, and like the Kelsey Grammer character is investigating it, and it's someone else who we never meet, but we just hear that this guy has died, and there's something going on in like the criminal underworld of this city.
Right. That's never, is that something that you and I missed? Or you're
No,
better
I
than
just
me at
don't
these things.
think like
It just wasn't
it just
related.
wasn't really there. Like, because
Yeah.
I kept expecting like, is there going to be some kind of a big like shootout or whatever? And it's like, no,
Yeah,
there's
they
just
should have
like
cut that scene.
this random this random character who we've never met before is dead before the movie opens. Oh, okay, cool. Like, not
Yeah, that
really.
wasn't referenced, was it?
Like, there were, I
Later.
think, in a couple of the scenes with the two bookies they talk about, because they're, I think the Jay Moore's character is working with Kelsey Grammer to get Tim a recording of Tim Roth saying like, I
Yeah,
killed
he's
him.
trying to get out,
Yeah.
right?
But also Kelsey Grammer is kind of working with Tim Roth. Also, I mean, Tim Roth is,
Well, that we don't find out till the end. Isn't
yeah.
that correct?
Well, but we also see there's the scene, I think, in the limo where like he plays him, or someone plays Tim Roth, like the recording of him saying like, yeah, I had, which also I have to say, I'm not that I'm ever going to be a criminal mastermind, but I feel like if I am smart enough to say we're going to go sit in the sauna and do this, but I'm gonna let you change and wear a towel the whole time, so like you can still wear a wire just under your towel. Like, gotta say, not a wise criminal mastermind move.
No,
Like, I
no,
guess.
it was silly. This is true. And yet, I don't know. I love, there were lots of problems with this movie, but I think that my favorite, it kept you interested. It kept me interested. I never was bored.
Yeah,
But yes, there definitely are like, that was, yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then admit to killing somebody. No,
yeah,
that just, yeah, no, that was very unconvincing.
yeah,
And then I just like the way that they handled, the addiction and writing, and also, so many writers have substance abuse
yeah.
problems, and it's just a fact.
Oh yeah,
And so, but mind you, so many people do.
yeah.
So it's actually a really, oh, there's actually a very good piece in The Nation out right
Mm,
now on alcohol and the alcohol industry and how complicit the alcohol industry is. And I love that there's a new discussion about
yeah,
uh, that the alcohol industry is not in any way impartial. They actually are pushing this drug, and they know, they're aware of all the harm that they're
yeah,
causing, and yet then they have ads like drink responsibly,
yeah,
and the gambling industry is the same thing, and the people doing ads for the gambling industry, I'm a little horrified by
yeah,
that,
yeah.
being like, hey, check it out. Who are some movie stars who are doing gambling ads that we know of? Can you
I
think?
I mean, I feel like there are a fair number. I don't this is I don't watch a ton of TV, and I don't, I think I probably don't see as much of the ubiquitous like, hey, just, but remember to gamble responsibly. It's like, okay,
Or no,
sure,
now
but
they
like,
actually, one thing that alcohol, ads don't do that gambling ads do. I do, why I see gambling ads? Because I watch a lot of films and I'm
hmm,
cheap. And so like I watch this movie on Tubi. So I have ads, and sometimes I get up and leave or mute them. But
yeah,
gambling ads usually have if you have a problem hotline thing
yeah,
at each gambling ad will run that a gambling hotline thing. In other words, we know we're selling you something that, might ruin your life, but alcohol does not. They'll just be
yeah,
like, drink responsibly. It's the
yeah.
exact opposite. They put it on the consumer as opposed to taking any responsibility themselves. It's very weird.
It's
I don't know.
it's also surreal. I mean, it's weird to me too that like in the booze industry you have I mean, I drink, but I had a period a couple of years ago where I was taking a medication for 6 months where I couldn't drink, and I think that was probably good for me. But it also like the fact that like more you can now get more like non-alcoholic beer, which actually tastes decent, which is nice. But it's weird that like that is one direction that the booze industry is going in, but also like I keep seeing things about like buzz balls where it's just like these little like
Other drugs, well, for
spheres
weed,
full of
marijuana being legal, which I think is
yeah,
great. I
yeah,
think I'm one of those people who thinks everything should be legal, but we need to be honest about
yeah.
what's going on. Um, but yeah, no, their Harper's printed it, and I actually know this is something I follow pretty seriously. But Gen Z, in comparison to, I mean, I'm Gen X, you're a millennial.
I
Gen
know
Z
I'm
drinks
also Gen X.
You're also Gen X. I'm
I'm
sorry.
like
I always
just
just
at the
think of
tail
you
end
as
of
a
Gen X.
younger man, Toby the younger man. Um, but Gen Z, that's my children. They have a different relationship. They're
Yeah,
much more aware of just and this is not the alcohol industry, that they're not responsible for this awareness.
yeah,
They just are drinking less alcohol, like significantly, like 20 or 30% less than my generation, than
yeah,
our generation. Um, but it's not because of, they have, the alcohol industry needs to go the way of the tobacco industry, which is they need to be taken to court.
yeah.
That's how I feel about it. They have, I mean, the lobby is insanely huge.
Mm,
It's just, an enormous, um, yeah, they have a lot of money. They make a lot of money, and they have a lot of power.
yeah.
But yeah, and then so and oh, but behavioral addictions are, gambling is oh, my favorite gambling movie. Can we talk about that? Is the Philip Seymour Hoffman one?
Oh, I have not seen that. I is that Owing Mahoney?
Yes, and that's based on a true story,
Yeah,
which even money obviously is not.
yeah,
But behavioral addictions, and in that movie, I think he drinks too, because the two, you get free alcohol still, right? I
yeah.
haven't been to a casino in a while, but
I haven't. The last time I was in a casino, well, I was staying in a casino. I was in Vegas, not for gambling, but I was staying in a casino hotel. So I think I put like $1 into like nickel slots. But I was in Vegas like 10 or I guess probably 15 years ago for a friend's bachelor party. And like I will say a friend and I decided to I think we're like we're gonna play quarter slots. We're gonna each put $20 into and like play quarter slots until our 20 runs out, and like that will be our thing. And even with that, like someone came by and was like, oh, can we get you a drink? And it's like, sure, like we are
it's free,
we,
right?
we are playing quarter slots, so like if that gets us a free drink, sure, why not? But
Yeah,
then and then
no,
we and then we finished.
they're
Left.
related.
Yeah,
They don't do that in this movie. They do not show the relationship between alcohol and
yeah,
gambling. But and there's a relationship between the two, but the thing about substances is that, like, if you quit alcohol, if you're actually physically dependent on alcohol and you quit cold turkey, you will die.
yeah,
Like, you can die from withdrawal. And then and gambling, I cannot imagine how badly it messes with your head, but it does not mess with your body
yeah,
like actual drugs do,
yeah,
or substances, or whatever you want to call them. So and I do think that differentiation needs to be considered, when we talk about these things.
yeah.
But yeah, gambling destroys people's lives. And then yet they make it understandable. That's what I feel like they had empathy for their gamblers.
Oh yeah,
You have empathy for addicts. What more could a film give me? I
yeah,
loved that. They showed like that it's actually just a human response
yeah.
to become addicted almost. And I actually, oh, I read an interview with that English writer who's somewhat Will Self.
Oh
He
yeah, yeah.
has a new book out, right?
I think so. I mean, I feel like yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and in it he talked. They asked him about addiction, and he had I screenshot, or I cut and pasted. That's what I did.
Mhm.
I was looking at my computer. I read it on the computer, and I cut and pasted it because he said something very intelligent, like that addiction is something that does can exist within all of us, similar to like the opioid crisis, where
Mhm.
unfortunately it took, because like it happened to white people, is one of the understandable arguments, but that like it's not like some the drug dealers in that case were trying to pretend like, well, they're addicts, and then everyone's like, actually, your drug, and people take it, and
Yeah.
a large part of them will become addicted. Like, addiction is something that lives inside of us, and I
Mhm.
feel like, and I mean inside of us as humans, this desire for the good feeling. I want
Yeah.
that good feeling over and over again, and I feel like that this movie showed it in its multiple forms and showed it really well.
Yeah.
And that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is about the end of the notes I have. Did you have any, was there anything else you wanted to bring up about the?
Not really. I mean, I wrote so many. I wrote, um, yeah. I don't know. No, I think we've had a great discussion. We talked about the writing, the depiction of the writer enough. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up the cover. I forgot about that, how she even stole that.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah. No, this was really fun
Yeah.
though.
Is there any project that you want to talk about? Books? You mentioned a collection coming up.
Oh yeah, I have.
I
So
saw
with
that Anthony Jeselnik has said nice things about your most recent novel, which was rad.
That is true. It's so great. In fact, there's a quote from him on I have my paperback launches coming.
Oh, sweet.
It's on the 12th. I'll be throwing a little party at Black Spring Books. You should go. That's
Okay.
near you. You're
Yeah,
in
it
Green.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I'll see you. But
Sounds great.
the paperback has an Anthony Jeselnik quote. How
Nice.
fun is that?
That's
And what
great.
cracks me up is this novel is not for everyone. Is part of it. It's just like, is that really what we want on the cover? I just love it. My publisher is just like, yeah, she doesn't write for everyone. And I'm like, sorry, everyone. Nope, this book isn't
Amazing.
for everyone, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
Oh, that's great.
But yeah, no, it's been a very good and busy year. I'm so glad that this book got attention. And then yeah, I'm just doing right now. I mean, what I like to do is give back. So I've just been reading a lot of other people's work, blurbing a bunch of people. That's been a great joy.
Nice.
And then Ristretto Books is putting out these little 3 short story books. They're these paperbacks, and
Mm,
they just have it's called Three. It's a series,
nice.
and that's been really fun. So that's coming out. Not
Fantastic.
anytime. Don't have a pub date yet for that,
All
but
right.
that was fun to work on.
Awesome. And that's our discussion of Even Money, a cautionary tale about the effects of gambling that seemingly no one heeded at the time. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode. As always, thank you for listening. Our logo was designed by Mac V. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a rating and/or review on your app of choice. If you have any questions, comments, requests, our email address is framedandboundpodcast@gmail.com. Our theme music, courtesy of the Internet Archive, is Arvid Franzen and Eric Berg's Life in the Woods of Finland. Thanks so much.